Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next session in our Insights That Work series. This is kind of a special one because it is with my friends at AYTM. Full transparency, I have been an advisor to AYTM, have been blessed to be an advisor with AYTM for, a really long time. And what's interesting, when I first started that relationship, I used to say that they were the best kept secret in research. They're not a secret anymore. So it has been incredibly cool to see this company just grow and just doing amazing stuff. That's always obviously why I always thought they were the best kept secret, because they do amazing stuff. So today we're going to hear some of that amazingness in action. So it's great to have Candace and Andy here. I'm going to go away. I'm going to let you guys talk. I'll come back at the end. But welcome, and Candace, Andy, take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lenny, for that wonderful introduction. I hope everyone is having a great afternoon and enjoying the Insights That Work event. I'm Candace Coltrane, Vice President Global Sales here at AYTM. We're excited to chat today with Andy Basehor, Senior Statistician at Kimberly-Clark. Andy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, Candace. So my name is Andy Basehor. I work at KC. I've been a statistician there for 15 years. I'm part of the R&E team at KC. Our specific group does a lot of product testing. So we do everything from physical testing, bench tests, to sensory tests, to clinical tests, to consumer testing. And my background is in kind of industrial statistics, design of experiments, but I've done a lot recently with consumer research. And specifically, our group supports the consumer tissue group at KC.
Great, wonderful. Thanks, Andy, for being here again. So I'd like to kick off the discussion by setting the stage just a bit. The Kimberly-Clark product and consumer sciences teams are big believers in giving consumers options via choice-based methodologies, and very regularly conduct research studies using these types of advanced tools. Today, we're going to hear from Andy about how they've tapped into AYTM as a robust research solution to deliver insights faster, within a limited budget, but most importantly, without compromising quality. So let's go ahead and dive in. Andy, to start out, can you share with us some of the challenges you face in your role and how you were introduced to the AYTM platform?
Sure. So we're always trying to make the most of our learning plan dollars, right? Which decrease a little bit every year. And if we can do more for less cost, that enables us to get consumer input on decisions that we otherwise have to leave up to just R&E opinion. It also enables us to be more iterative with our testing. If we can test more often, we can touch base with consumer multiple times throughout the product development life cycle. And then, as always, we're trying to get faster as our product development timelines get faster. We need to have our research done as quickly as possible. I'll give you a case example. When I first started with the industry like 15 years ago, we would expect our consumer research to take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. That was standard from the point we said go, even for research that didn't involve product testing. But now we have much tighter cycles, and we need results more quickly. So I was actually introduced to AYTM by an R&E team member who needed to get measurements inside a consumer's home for an upcoming product specification. We had old data on this, but we needed to refresh that data. He was able to work with AYTM to get that within a week for a national sample. So that really piqued my interest in your guys' company.
Absolutely. I think I remember that project. It was an interesting topic, if I recall. So
Yeah.
It's wonderful that it's led to such a great partnership. So when you were evaluating AYTM, were some of the specific capabilities, was there something specific you required or something that added the most value for you?
Yeah, so you talked about choice experiments. So, what I look for in a vendor is like 4 basic things, right? It's like, okay, cost, speed, capabilities, and then customer support. So one of my areas I'm kind of passionate about is choice-based experiments. I feel like we learn a lot from consumers when we can present, scenarios where they have to make decisions, and then learn about what motivates what's important to them by how they make their decisions. So when I found out that AYTM could offer either fairly simple choice experiments like max diff designs, or more complicated like conjoint, discrete choice conjoint based designs, I was really excited about that. And then, as kind of I dove in further, what I think is one of the neat capabilities about AYTM is they can really their survey platform, it's easy to use and program, but it's also very powerful. And by that I mean you can do things like, okay, I want to provide somebody a choice-based experiment, but at the end I want feedback on the option that they found to be most interesting, right, or most persuasive, okay, or the one they were going to be most likely to purchase. So you can you can have the platform spit that back out and get qualitative feedback about why they chose that or didn't. And I haven't seen that capability with other vendors. And then just in general, I mean, the supports has been excellent. Like I said, whether you want to be more turnkey and have AYTM run the research for you, or you need like hand holding and want to do something very custom, I felt the support with AYTM was very solid. And then just again, getting back to cost, like the ability to conduct a discrete choice study or max diff survey that with a traditional vendor, would cost you, upwards of $30,000 in a case example. We're able to run that on AYTM for a fraction of that cost. So it still comes back to just speed and cost savings, but without sacrificing quality.
Absolutely, all great points. And one that you brought up, I'd like to hone in on a bit more is really the partnership piece, the service piece. So, I always tell potential new clients as they're onboarding that the platform in a way sells itself because it is so intuitive and so powerful. But it's really the service level and that partnership that continues to bring clients back for more and allows us to grow the work that we do. And a lot of clients start to think, agile research is really kind of the old way of quick and dirty. And we know that that's just not the case anymore. And that with the power of these types of tools, you're able to really do that strategic type of research. So obviously you've had some great experience over the past year, and based on that and your mention of the enthusiasm for Kimberly-Clark to do a lot of choice-based solutions, can you speak to some of those in a bit more detail or some specific examples or use cases?
Yeah, so for one of our major brands, we had a scenario where we needed to optimize a packaging assortment. So we needed to screen down from like 20 to 30 different packaging options to find the 8 or so that would provide the greatest kind of mass appeal or reach across the consumer without alienating too many buyers. So it was kind of a classic assortment optimization problem for our packaging design. And one of the tools that AYTM had was that, again, that max diff methodology, but they have a turf-based analysis on the back end. And the other challenging thing about this is, and this comes up with a lot of our stimulus, rather than writing, statements, to the extent possible, we like to show pictures of what the product would look like. In this case, it was different package renderings, which the AYTM platform handles very, very easily. So I'm very pleased with how easy it is to upload images as stimulus for our choice-based experiments. And then the way AYTM presents that in kind of the interface, whether it's a mobile interface or whether it's on a tablet, they really optimize the survey platform to deliver that those images. So in this case, we presented the images in choice sets, and we were able to run that turf analysis again very quickly, like within 4 days from pressing go. We had our max diff turf analysis back, and we also got very good clarity about how they analyze the data. As a statistician, I appreciate when things aren't, everybody can each to their own, but I do like to see the details and the guts and get an explanation of how the tool is doing the analysis. It gives me confidence in the results. And AYTM provided several different ways of performing that turf analysis along with the details and the raw data. And I could tell right away that they were very knowledgeable about the different ways you could make these decisions, and that gave me the confidence that I was getting the right answer. So just a very successful experience with that particular module.
That's great. I think you've mentioned too environmental questions you've been able to. So while we love the advanced piece of the platform, obviously being able to just touch into reach consumers in a very quick and iterative fashion is important as well. And I know you've touched on that, as well as being able to really dive into subgroup analysis. Anything further to add around that piece?
Yeah, it comes back to, you only have a finite amount of budget, and if we have to choose tools that are, more costly, sometimes you can't afford to do the big sample size to get those segments of interest. And because the cost structure of AYTM for some of these surveys is more reasonable, I think we've been able to get additional segment breakouts by just increasing the sample size or doing over quotas for particular targets. And we found a lot of I've been surprised by sometimes the amount of differences that we've been able to see, like actionable differences between different segments of consumers that we probably would have missed had we run that with a typical, n equals 30, that's your, breakout size. So just the cost advantages can manifest itself in multiple ways, and one way is doing more expansive surveys that allow us to really see specific segments.
Great. And I think it's important to notate this as well. So obviously, being a statistician, your skill set lends nicely to these types of tasks. But I always like to point out, and to those viewing today, that the platform really makes the adoption of these types of choice-based solutions incredibly easy, with drag and drop features, automated inputs and guidance. Of course, an easy to use analysis output, and it's provided to you in real time. I kind of joked when I first joined AYTM 3 years ago that my 12-year-old niece could actually program a conjoint. Not that she knows what it is, but it really does make it so easy to use and intuitive.
Yeah, I mean, I would. Sorry, just to add to that, yes, the tool is extremely easy to use. If you have a list of claims and you want to do a max diff exercise on those, I mean, anyone can can program that very intuitively. You don't have to be a statistician to do that. But if you are and you want more capabilities, the AYTM has the ability to really customize a lot of stuff too. So to me, it works well for the the new user or the less experienced user. There's a lot of guidance there. And for someone that's more technologically savvy in the design of those experiments, they can customize things as well. So.
Absolutely. Just goes back to that support piece. So having a team of people to reach out to that really do act as an extension of your own research team. So Andy, do you feel that with working with an agile PM that empowers your team with quicker access to insights, has supported relationships with stakeholders or brought the customer voice and data into more decision making?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said before, we're able to do consumer research within budgets, especially for some of our smaller projects where we wouldn't have been able to have that consumer lens before. So it makes that possible. I mean, I think everyone sees, when I show them the interface and what the consumer survey looks like, and the kind of intuitiveness of the interface, people get excited about that. I think one of the best things I've done is just show people, hey, this is what the survey looks like. This is how they go through it. Here's what the automated reports that are generated by it, and the fact that we're able to meet their timing needs has certainly gained a lot of trust in the organization and interest in using this tool.
Right. We hear from a lot of clients that, the traditional way of research, there's a lot of gates, right? If you're doing innovation work at each point, you have to wait 6 to 8 weeks before you can get an answer back to the R&D team. And the ability to just have those iterative discussions kind of pop in and out of meetings with data in hand has really just changed the way that innovation life cycles are being undertaken now. You had mentioned previously, and I like to dive into this a bit more because I think it's important to always be open about the way that these types of platforms are operating, and having visibility into the confidence of the data. Are there other ways that AYTM's platform is giving you visibility into data quality that you may appreciate?
Yeah, I mean, so anytime you do things, less expensively, there's always that question in the back of your mind, like, all right, am I getting, a quality result? Again, I'm a big believer that I always take my surveys myself when we design them because I want to see what the user experience is like. And so having it be intuitive, that so even my mother could take the survey right and be engaged in it well, I think is important if you want a quality response. But just from my own experience, like looking at the open-end questions that we often conduct with these surveys, and looking at the degree of kind of quality information that we get from those in terms of, like, I'll have an open-end question on the end of the survey. I'll make it optional. I'll still get an 80% response rate with, with generally very good feedback that tells people have been engaged in the survey. So certainly haven't seen any flags that cause anything for concern. Getting a lot of good confidence in the quality of the results based on the level of engagement I see in the respondents when they fill out their open ends.
Right. And that's a good point because it really does speak to the integrated proprietary panel that we offer, fully built into the platform. The highest quality panels that I've seen, and it truly does come down to the way that we communicate with our panelists, and we ensure that they're incentivized correctly. You can only access our panelists through our platform as well. So all of these various things really do help to ensure that you as the client, you're having access to the best quality data. So we have one final question here, and I think it's an important one because, for those listening here today, maybe they've already embarked on their journey to adopt Agile research. A lot of, companies, organizations right now are being told they have to do more with less. I think prior to, COVID, a lot of companies were still hesitant to adopt Agile research, and truly those that had already done so were ahead of the curve. And they were able to stay ahead of the ever-changing consumer, especially, during last year and during those difficult times. I know for us, we've seen a major uptick in adoption of Agile, even at the start of this year, because I think organizations are really focused on now, we've got to make that change. So with that, do you have any advice to those who are looking to build a business case as to, why they should become Agile and really how they could help to do that and make that business case internally with their stakeholders?
Yeah, I mean, probably the same advice that was given to the person that introduced me to AYTM, right? Just pilot it, do it, use it. It's not so much of a cost barrier that you can't try it as an experiment to see what you get. And once you use the software and the tool and the survey, and you get that that first result back, share the interface, the results. And that will, I think, build enthusiasm for for continuing to think agilely, but also just to utilize the AYTM tool. So I personally have a lot of internal interest once I showcased our initial surveys we did with AYTM, both the speed, the cost advantages, and then again showing the quality of the interface. I think really got people motivated to use this.
Yeah, and I would add to that, though, a pilot doesn't only mean having an access to the platform. Purchasing a license, for example, a pilot can mean so much more and can take on so many different facets. And again, not to continue to harp on it, but the service piece, right? So, when you're looking to build a pilot, lean on your supplier to help guide you with what methodology, what approach is most optimal. And obviously, lean on us to ensure that the timing and that the cost looks correct for you to be able to. That's definitely what we're here for. Wonderful. So if you have any other last comments, Andy, that's pretty much it for questions for today, and we can certainly open it up for questions to the audience as well.
No, thank you for the opportunity to present here today. I appreciate it, Candace.
All right. That was great. I'm going to jump into Love Fest here for a second as well, because I didn't say that, we are also AYTM customers, right? The grit study that we conduct. Now, obviously, being an insider makes that useful. But Andy, what really stuck out is you were talking about the ability to do more complex studies, right? The max diff and conjoint, and that was always one of the things that have stood out for me as a user of AYTM as well. Is it makes the complex easy, and that's amazingly powerful to. So hearing you as a statistician back that up, right? I think that's important, and it brings me to a question. So the kind of the next piece of that in my mind in any of these platforms, and particularly AYTM, because I'm used to it, is the ability to easily translate learnings across the organization, right? It's easy to create a report. It's easy to be able to have that and change it and customize it and distribute that on the fly, either through the dashboard or through the exports in a PowerPoint. Is that something that's been useful for you as well to to really socialize findings quickly and efficiently while you're conducting these projects.
Yes, I mean, for sure. So, I mean, you always get the automated report with the AYTM, and sometimes that itself is the answer, and that's all you need. And so, the ability to send a link out when the survey is done immediately to the the R&E team members that requested the work. I don't have to spend time, assembling the findings. They can navigate that themselves. They can look at certain subgroups. I've definitely taken advantage of the built-in report to have an instant top line.
Has that changed? Maybe just a broader question is, as Kimberly-Clark has moved more into adopting agile approaches, and has there been substantive organizational change, right? Has it changed how you function, how you engage stakeholders? Have you seen any broader implications?
I mean, I think we're getting there. I think as people develop this mindset, I think there is a shift to more touching base with the consumer, more iteration, and less working on one thing for 8 months or a year and then getting it out there, right? So I do think the mindset is shifting, and I think these tools help us deliver against that.
Yeah, Kimberly-Clark was actually a client of mine back in the old days when I ran a full service company. Working with June West Holland. I don't know if you remember that name. She was here in Atlanta, but yeah, you guys were not agile. that was not part of the equation.
That's very fair. I'm sure that's very fair. Yes.
Yeah, I don't mean in a bad way. It's just, but a very formalized process, right? So It was. So it's great to hear a story like that now from an organization I have firsthand experience with. Loved working with you, but not agile. So how you've adapted and changed, that's really cool. And then Candace, one last question. Obviously, 2020 was a watershed year for the adoption of DIY, but we use that broad category. I know there's DIY, do it with you, do it for you. Has this been the kind of the dominant story that you've heard through that growth of, look, we need to get answers fast. We can't do it the old way anymore. And that is what's driving this overall adoption and shift to this entire category of solutions.
And I mean, absolutely. But I think that, last year was kind of the catalyst in the industry, right? So for many years, I joke that I sold DIY solutions before people knew what DIY solutions were, right? So quite some years ago, it was such a hurdle at that point. And now it's no longer really about trying to educate as to why DIY or agile research is needed, because it's imperative now, right? I mean, looking at what happened last year and watching a lot of our current clients grow and adopt so much quicker than maybe because they were forced to, right? Unfortunately, their resourcing, went down. Budgets were decreased overnight, basically. So we saw adoption grow, really quickly last year. And as I mentioned before, I think the shift that's happened is budgets have opened back up. Companies are understanding that research is more imperative ever right now because the consumer is changing overnight in terms of their thoughts and what brands they want to purchase and what's still on the shelf for them to be able to purchase and what's driving the need for all that. So it's been an interesting shift, and I think we're going to continue to see this adoption roll out. But I think my last point to make is that agile research is not just for the quick and dirty research. Right? It's not just, let's send out 5 questions and kind of get that quick pulse. Yes, it absolutely can be used for that. But as you heard today from Andy, that it's so much more, right? You're able to really take the core of the business objectives that you and your teams are being faced with and be able to, build the research objectives into this type of platform. So you can capture all of that at once.
Yeah, and last point, maybe one follow-up question on that, because I think you nailed it. We'd like to think that there was this shift that occurred about 1 year ago now, right? And no, that shift has an incredible long tail. and continues in so many dimensions. I was actually exchanging emails this morning with somebody about the just in terms of advertising, right? That we have this massive fragmentation that's occurring around media and social media. I was reading something around the growth of streaming platforms, yada, yada, yada. There's so many implications that have continued to roll out. And to me, that tells me that the need to continue to have this agile, on-demand ability is only going to grow. There's not a snapback to the way things were because the changes still are rolling out. Now, Andy, is that your take from Kimberly-Clark, thinking that, yeah, this was not a snapshot in time? There is, we are on a trend that's going to continue for a long time. And what you're doing now is a way to adapt to that trend as it goes forward.
Yeah, I mean, lots of things are changing, right? Both in terms of consumer behavior and how we have to think about testing. And I think we all keep thinking, like, when is it going to get back to normal? When is it going to go back to the way it was? And it's probably not, right? It's permanently changed. So yeah, totally agree, Lenny. What you're saying.
Okay, great. All right. Well, we'll stop this now, and I'm sure there's questions that are coming in through the Q&A. And great. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the wonderful case study and discussion. And yes, be well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lenny. Thank you, Andy.
Yep. Thanks, guys.